Agriculture is producing a lot of data at the moment. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, not very excited, to be honest. Again, it depends who you talk to as to what answer you'll get. There's data and there's data. I tend to have a bit more of a cynical view. It's very easy to produce lots of data. It matters then what you're able to do with that data, how you're able to interpret it and action treatment based on it. So actionable data is very different from just having a lot of data. Currently, there's a lot of interest, and quite rightly, in producing heat maps of fields and having farm machinery that can, to some degree, increase the resolution of treatment. We've moved from a field with the best farmers, not all farmers by a long way, but with the leading farmers, we've moved from a field level of resolution down to tens of meters. And a lot of farmers kind of knew where the problem patches were anyway, particularly in terms of soil type and productivity constraint. They know where the patches of weeds are. They tend to know the fields quite well. So actually the value that a lot of this data brings, it's very interesting, it's very visual, it's very easy to talk about, big data. But I estimate that if you look at the data that is on a platform, a lot of web platforms doing this these days, how much of that is actually useful and actionable, and how much do you take into account when you decide what you're going to do with that crop? If all the data is represented by 100%, I'm guessing probably less than 10% is actually used. It's actually useful. A lot of my friends in other industries may disagree with that. Then there's a dilemma of if you've got a poorly growing area that you can see from a drone or a satellite, what do you do? Do you add more fertilizer to try and get it to grow? Or do you recognize that there may be some inherent constraint in the soil there and cut the losses? Don't treat it, let it die. Because just treating it won't help it grow anymore, and you're wasting money. Now, in order to understand that, you've got to go out there with a shovel and actually look at what the constraint is. Maybe a chemical residue from the past, it may be a soil infection, it may be the soil structure. You can't just assume that the thinner spots need more fertilizer. That's not that efficient. That's not interpreting the data correctly or thoroughly. So this kind of data is incremental in moving us forward away from the field to tens of meters of resolution, and that's great. But there's a lot of data produced now that really is it's kind of, I call them sunshine maps, nice pretty pictures of the field, but are you actually using it to make decisions? Very little of it. What we need to do is to actually get that resolution down to individual plants and beyond the individual plants to leaves, for example. Then those heat maps we can use, because you can actually say, I'm going to treat this leaf of the crop differently from that leaf. That's a paradigm shift. That's a shift in thinking from where we are today. And it has to really mean a move from large heavy machinery to lighter weight robots. As a stepping stone, we might have lighter weight robotic attachments on heavy machinery. Okay, that's one way to do it, but ultimately we need lightweight robots. It will take time, but that's where we need to go. And then the data that we're producing is nearly all actionable. That's the difference. Most of the data we're producing today isn't actionable.